battle-hardened veteran, a loyal canine partner, a Silver Star medal lost somewhere in the shadows of an airport. What began as a simple trip to an honor ceremony spiraled into a chase through hidden storage rooms and old wounds Jack Turner thought he'd buried. Alongside his aging German Shepherd Rex, Jack would soon uncover a secret network and confront what courage truly means. Stay with us through this powerful, true-to-life story. If it moves you, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share where you're watching from. Jack Turner had never been a man of many words. The weight of 6 decades, 40 of them spent in the service of a country he loved and bled for, pressed against his stooped shoulders every morning as he laced up the same battered boots he'd worn since his final deployment. Now 62, Jack wasn't so much trying to reclaim youth or glory. He knew better than to chase ghosts, but something about the upcoming Veterans Honor Summit in Washington, D.C. stirred a restless pulse deep within him. It had been years since he'd worn his dress blues. They hung in the back of his closet beneath a thin plastic sheath, untouched since Linda's funeral. She would have wanted him to go, he knew that. For weeks, her voice had whispered through the rooms of their empty farmhouse, pushing him past grief, past inertia. And so, on a cold June morning, Jack finally gave in to her memory. He found himself meticulously polishing a pair of black leather shoes that still bore the faint crease of an old desert march, laying out his uniform piece by piece across the bed. But when he opened the small oak box where he kept the medals, each one etched with a story only his bones remembered, a hollow space stared back at him. His Silver Star was missing. At first, he thought it must be an oversight, perhaps buried under layers of faded commendations and folded flags. He emptied the box onto the bed. No medal, no ribbon, just the chilling silence of something irreplaceable. Jack cursed under his breath, scouring drawers, closets, even beneath floorboards long left untouched. The Silver Star wasn't a trinket. It had been pinned to his chest after a harrowing firefight in the mountains of Kunar province. It symbolized the lives saved, the lives lost. It was the one tangible proof that the hell he'd survived had meant something. He remembered placing it in his carry-on bag during his last trip to Denver, a rare visit to see his estranged brother. The bag had been misplaced by the airline and returned 3 days later. He hadn't checked the metal box since. A pit opened in Jack's stomach. The damn airport, the bag handlers. A careless shuffle, a zipper half open, anything could have happened. But if there was even a chance the metal had slipped out there, he had to try. He'd always been a man who finished what he started. That same morning, Jack booked a flight to D.C. routing through JFK International Airport, where he suspected the metal had been lost. If nothing else, it would give him a window to ask questions, pull at threads. There was another passenger on that journey, Rex, his aging German Shepherd. The dog had once been a fierce canine unit partner during Jack's last deployment. Now 12 years old, Rex walked with a dignified limp, a graying muzzle betraying his years of service. After retirement, Jack had adopted him, not just as a companion but as a bridge between past and present. Rex understood Jack in a way no human could. And Jack, for all his isolation, loved the dog with the fierce loyalty of a fellow soldier. Boarding the plane, Jack glanced down at Rex settled at his feet, eyes scanning every movement around them with calm precision. "One last mission, old boy," Jack whispered, running a calloused hand over Rex's ears. The flight passed in silence. Jack barely touched his meal, mind racing with possible scenarios. The Silver Star might be gone forever. It might already sit in the pocket of some dishonest worker, or worse, discarded in a trash heap. But there were questions worth asking and a man worth honoring. When they landed at JFK, Jack wasted no time. He approached the airport's lost and found office, the worn photograph of his Silver Star gripped tightly in one hand. His voice, though weathered, carried a sharpness that drew attention. "This medal went missing from my bag 2 months ago. I need to know if anything was turned in, or if there's a record of unclaimed valuables." The attendant, a young woman with sympathetic eyes, checked her system. "Nothing matching that description, sir. But sometimes items end up in our storage facility if they come in through security or baggage services." "Then that's where I need to go." The storage facility, a cavernous room filled with forgotten objects, reeked of abandonment. As Jack sifted through the chaos, his breath caught. The chances of finding the metal here were slim, But each opened box felt like one more moment of borrowed hope. After an hour of fruitless searching, Jack leaned against a steel shelf, wiping sweat from his brow. That's when Rex tense, nose twitching, body alert. The shepherd moved toward a far corner of the room, tail stiff, ears high. "What is it, boy?" Blath gave him. Jack dropped to his knees, pulling the bags aside. No metal, just a faint scent of something familiar. Leather, brass. The trail ended cold, but the moment stirred something in Jack. The resolve of a man who once navigated the fog of war. He wasn't leaving without answers. That night, holed up in a modest airport motel, Jack stared at the faded photo of Linda on the nightstand. "I know you'd tell me to let it go," he murmured. This is about more than a piece of metal." Beside him, Rex stirred in his sleep, letting out a low, contented sigh. Jack rested a hand on the dog's flank. "Tomorrow we go deeper," he said quietly. "You and me. One more mission." As dawn broke over JFK, casting long beams of light across the tarmac, Jack Turner rose with new resolve. The search was just the first rays of morning light seeped through the thin curtains of Jack's motel room, but he was already awake, sitting stiff-backed on the edge of the bed. His body, conditioned by years of early risings, didn't need an alarm. The photograph of Linda still rested by the lamp, her smile a silent encouragement. He reached down and gently shook Rex's shoulder. "Come on, boy. Time to move." The German shepherd lifted his head, blinking sleep away, then rose slowly, joints stiff but determination still visible in his gaze. Jack clipped the leash onto Rex's collar, though they both knew it was more for appearance than control. Rex had never needed it. Outside, the airport pulsed with the disjointed rhythm of travelers. Some rushed, some weary, some entirely unaware of the thousand untold stories unfolding around them. Jack's story was just one more thread in that endless human tapestry. But today it mattered more than any flight or meeting. He moved with purpose toward the main terminal, Rex trotting at his side, posture alert. The pair cut a striking figure, an old soldier and his aging war dog bound by invisible threads stronger than blood. Passing through the sliding glass doors, Jack felt his pulse quicken. The hunt had begun. He approached the lost and found again, determined to press for more information. The same young woman from the previous day glanced up, recognition flashing in her eyes. "You're back," she said softly. Jack nodded. "Wasn't finished," he replied, voice like worn gravel. Before she could respond, a voice rang out from behind. "Jack Turner, as I live and breathe." Jack turned sharply. Striding toward him in a crisp TSA uniform was an older man, tall and lean with a squared jaw and eyes that had seen their share of combat. "Mike Sanderson," Jack said with a rare, genuine smile. They clasped hands in a firm grip that spoke volumes. "Didn't know you were stationed here," Jack added. Mike chuckled. "Pulled a desk job after my last tour. Less sand, more concrete," he said. "Mike's just... And look who's still in the fight," he added, kneeling to scratch Rex behind the ears. The shepherd's tail thumped the floor, ears flicking in recognition. "He slowed down some," Jack admitted, "but he still got the nose. Helps me keep my head straight these days." Mike nodded knowingly. "PTSD's a bastard. You're lucky to have him," he said. "I've read studies, dogs like Rex can pick up on stress signals before even the best shrink." He briefly explained the missing silver star, the suspicion it had vanished somewhere in the airport's labyrinth of storage. Mike's expression darkened. "You should have called me sooner," he said. "You know these places, layers of red tape, outsourced handlers, part-timers with sticky fingers." Jack sighed. "Didn't want to pull favors." Mike waved the protest aside. "Bullshit, this matters. Come with me." Together they navigated a maze of security corridors behind the public facade of the airport. Rex trotted obediently at Jack's heel, his head on a constant swivel, ears twitching at every sound. Mike led them to a secure section labeled Baggage Anomaly Review. "This is where items pulled from screening or flagged bags sometimes get dumped before proper logging," he explained. "Less oversight than lost and found," a supervisor greeted them, surprised to see a civilian and a dog in tow. Mike handled it with a few clipped words, invoking old favors and newer authority. The man relented. "You've got 10 minutes, we're running an audit soon." The room was a claustrophobic collection of carts and bins, each brimming with items ranging from forgotten electronics to sealed evidence bags. The air was thick with stale dust and the faint scent of metal and plastic. Jack hesitated. "Rex," he said softly, unhooking the leash. The old dog looked up, awaiting command. Jack knelt to eye level, then padded forward with measured steps. Years of training resurfaced with instinctive clarity. His snout hovered inches above each container, body language shifting with subtle cues only Jack could read. They watched as Rex paused at a cluster of battered duffels, his head tilted. Then he moved on. Jack's hope flickered. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then, near the far wall, Rex's posture changed. His body stiffened, tail held rigid, nostrils flaring. A low whine escaped him, followed by a sharp glance back toward Jack. Jack moved quickly. He told Mike. They approached a large black suitcase, untagged and worn. Rex circled it twice, nose pressed against the seams, tail wagging slow and deliberate, a clear signal. Jack's heart pounded. Mike knelt beside the bag, carefully unzipping it under the watchful gaze of the supervisor. Inside lay a jumble of clothing and assorted personal items, but no obvious sign of the metal. Jack's breath caught. Then Rex nosed deeper, pawing gently at the lining. Mike pulled back a flap to reveal a false compartment. Nestled inside was a small velvet case, battered at the corners. Jack reached for it with shaking hand. The weight was unmistakable even before he opened it. Inside, gleaming despite faint scratches, lay the silver star. Jack exhaled sharply, knees nearly buckling. Mike placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Looks like your partner earned another star today," he said, voice gruff. Jack swallowed hard, throat tight. "He never stopped earning them," he whispered, running his fingers over Rex's head in a slow, grateful stroke. The supervisor, uneasy now, shifted from foot to foot. "We'll need to log this properly," he began, but Mike cut him off. "You'll get your paperwork. This man's taking what's his." Jack carefully pocketed the medal, then clipped Rex's leash back on. As they left the room, a weight seemed to lift from Jack's shoulders. Not entirely, but enough to straighten his spine, sharpen his gaze. Mike walked beside him in silence for a moment. "You know," he said finally, "there's an old favor I can call in. Rex still has clearance under the federal canine registry. If you're willing, I can get you access to the deeper storage areas, places even I can't walk into without cause." Jack considered this. The metal was safe now, but the experience had stirred something deeper. A question of how such an item ended up hidden like contraband. He looked down at Rex, whose amber eyes gleamed with unspoken readiness. "One more mission," Jack said softly. "Let's do it." Mike smiled. "Thought you'd say that." He tapped his radio. "Give me 5 minutes to set things up, then we go deeper." Jack nodded. Rex pressed close to his leg, as if sensing the road ahead was far from over. And somewhere beneath the hum of airport announcements and rolling suitcases, an old soldier and his faithful dog prepared to follow the scent of truth wherever it might lead. The hum of the security radio buzzed faintly in Jack's ear as he followed Mike through a maze of service corridors beneath the main terminal. Rex trotted ahead, nose twitching, posture loose but ready. Mike had made good on his promise, securing temporary clearance for both Jack and Rex to access the restricted lower levels, where unclaimed and flagged baggage was stored before being either cleared or destroyed. Jack could feel the gravity of the place pressing down on him with each step. The air grew colder, denser, thick with the scent of metal and oil. The deeper they went, the fewer people they passed. "Most folks don't come down here," Mike said over his shoulder. "Too easy for things to get lost or hidden." Jack grunted in response, eyes scanning every shadow. His mind, honed by decades of combat and loss, cataloged each detail with grim precision. They reached a reinforced door marked Zone Bay C. Mike swiped his badge and keyed in a code. The lock disengaged with a mechanical clunk. "Here we are," he said, pushing the door open. A wave of cold air greeted them. The room beyond was vast, dimly lit, rows upon rows of steel shelves stacked with unclaimed luggage, crates, and battered cardboard boxes. A flickering camera hung from one corner of the ceiling, its lens caked with dust. Jack's gaze narrowed. "Does that camera work?" Mike followed his line of sight and shook his head. "Doubt it. This whole section's a blind spot. Maintenance backlog." Jack filed that away. A blind spot was a gift to anyone with something to hide. "Same drill, buddy," he whispered. "Find it." Rex's ears perked. He glanced at Jack once, then set off with purpose, weaving through the aisles with practiced precision. Jack and Mike trailed a few steps behind, careful not to interfere. The dog moved with fluid economy, nose skimming the air and floor, tail held at half-mast. Minutes passed, the silence broken only by the soft scuff of boots on concrete. Jack's heart beat a steady rhythm, equal parts focus and rising tension. Then, without warning, Rex stopped. His body tensed, muscles coiling beneath grizzled fur. He emitted a low, sharp whine, glanced back at Jack, then fixated on a darkened corner of the room. Jack's pulse spiked. "He's got something," he said quietly. Mike nodded, hand instinctively brushing the grip of his sidearm. They advanced toward the corner where the overhead lights flickered and died, casting the space into half-shutter. Rex moved in, nose to the ground, posture stiff. Jack followed, adrenaline surging. As they neared the wall, Rex began circling a pile of untagged duffel bags and hard-assed suitcases stacked haphazardly against a dented metal panel. He pawed at one of the bags, hands steady despite the thrum in his chest. He unzipped the top compartment of the first duffel, nothing but clothes and toiletries. Rex pawed again, more insistent this time, directing Jack's attention to a large olive-drab canvas bag slumped against the wall. Jack's breath caught. The bag was military issue, older model, frayed at the seams. A rush of memory slammed into him. Desert nights in Kunar, dust-choked air, gunmetal screams. His vision swam briefly, unbidden images crowding the edges of his mind. Linda's voice echoed faintly. "Focus, Jack." He shook off the rising tide and reached for the bag. The zipper resisted, stiff with age and grime. Jack yanked it open. Inside, beneath a stained fleece jacket and an assortment of battered gear, lay a tightly wrapped bundle of heavy-duty plastic. Rex growled softly, hackles raised. Jack exchanged a glance with Mike. "You seeing this?" Mike nodded grimly. "Go slow." Jack peeled back the layers of plastic, breath held. Within, he found a small metal box, scratched and dented. He opened it. His breath left him in a sharp exhale. Inside were several neatly stacked envelopes, each thick with folded currency, and beneath them a slim ledger bound in cracked leather. No medal, no silver star, but something else entirely. Jack's mind spun. Money, records, evidence of something bigger. He glanced at Rex, who remained locked on the canvas bag, nose twitching, body taut. "He's not done," Jack muttered. "Here's more." Mike stepped back, voice low. "This could be part of a trafficking operation. I've heard whispers about stuff moving through dead zones like this. We need to log this." Jack barely heard him. Rex had shifted again, moving to a battered hard case half buried behind the olive duffel. He began scratching at it, a deep growl vibrating in his chest. Jack moved fast, dragging the case clear. It was locked with a cheap combination latch. He snapped it open with a multi-tool. The case yawned wide. Inside, nestled among a mess of tangled cables and electronics, was another small velvet box. Jack's heart lurched. He grabbed it with trembling fingers, opened it, and swore softly. Empty, just an indentation where something once rested. Rex whined, nose pressing against the case, then lifted his head to sniff the surrounding air. He paced in tight circles, tail high, posture rigid. Jack rose slowly, breath coming fast now. Someone had been through here. Someone had taken what mattered and left a trail half hidden in the dust. And this corner, the camera blind spot, the unsecured access, had made it all too easy. He turned to Mike, voice low but hard. "Somebody's running games in this section, and they're smart enough to use our blind spots to do it." Mike's jaw clenched. "You think your metal got caught up in this?" Jack's gaze drifted back to Rex, who now stood facing a dark recess between two shelving units. Body locked in. "Think," Jack said slowly. "We haven't found the bottom of this yet." He stepped forward, eyes narrowing as he followed Rex's lead, the shadows ahead deepening with each silent step. The cold air pressed tighter as Jack stepped into the dark recess where Rex stood frozen, body poised, nose lifted, tail straight as a steel rod. Mike followed, flashlight cutting a narrow beam through the gloom. The beam landed on a battered utility cart wedged between two rusted shelving units. A canvas tarp covered its contents. Jack and Mike exchanged a glance. Mike signaled for caution and approached, drawing back the tarp with deliberate slowness. Beneath it sat 3 sealed duffel bags, military-grade, none tagged or logged. "These weren't supposed to be here," Mike muttered, voice tense. Jack's instincts bristled. The bags reeked of danger, of intent. "Your move," he said quietly. Mike called in a team from airport security. Within minutes, 2 agents arrived, their uniforms crisp, eyes wary. They began cataloging the contents under Mike's supervision. The first duffel yielded stacks of cash, neatly banded, the edges of the bills worn from handling. The second revealed tightly wrapped bricks of a pale, crystalline substance, methamphetamine, based on the markings and the agent's grim expressions. The third bag contained a mix of forged passports, burner phones, and encrypted USB drives. Jack exhaled through his nose, fists clenched. This wasn't random lost property. It was a smuggling cache. One agent looked to Mike. "We've got probable cause to treat this as part of an organized trafficking operation," he said. "This has nothing to do with your friend's metal, though." Jack absorbed the words with a knot in his gut. The Silver Star wasn't here, but this discovery meant the shadows in JFK's lab tree meant deeper than he'd imagined. Rex, meanwhile, hadn't relaxed. He stood apart from the agents, head cocked, nostrils flaring as if sensing a trail no one else could perceive. Jack watched him carefully. The old shepherd's intuition had never failed them in Afghanistan. It wouldn't fail now. As the agents sealed evidence bags and prepared their reports, Rex gave a sharp whine and pivoted, tail high, moving toward a narrow maintenance door set into the far wall. The door was unmarked, half concealed by a leaning stack of broken carts. Jack frowned. "The door on any of your maps?" he asked. Mike frowned and tapped his tablet. After a moment, he shook his head. "Not in any of the updated schematics. Could be an old service access that never got scrubbed from the system." Jack's gaze hardened. Or someone's been using it for a reason. Without waiting, he followed Rex, who had begun pawing lightly at the base of the door. Mike signaled one of the agents to cover him and joined Jack. The door's handle resisted at first, rusted from years of neglect. Mike forced it open with a grunt. The hinges groaned, revealing a narrow passage sloping downward into darkness. The air that drifted out was colder still, laced with the metallic tang of stagnant air. Jack clicked on his flashlight. Rex moving ahead, nose low, steps measured. Mike followed, weapon drawn but lowered. Mike cursed under his breath. "Someone's maintaining this," he said. Jack nodded grimly. "Not your average lost luggage cache." Mike contacted the central operations room. After several tense minutes, clearance codes were provided. The lock disengaged with a soft beep. The door swung inward. They stepped into a cavernous storage space unlike any they'd seen. Rows of untagged luggage stretched into the distance. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of suitcases and crates. None marked in the system. The lights buzzed faintly overhead, a few flickering. Jack scanned the room with a growing sense of unease. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. A black site within the airport. Rex moved like a phantom between the rows. Nose twitching, body taut. Jack and Mike followed. Minds racing. Mike spoke softly. "Looks like someone's been diverting flagged or questionable bags here. Keeping them off the grid. My guess? A ring within the handling crew. Smuggle in what they want, bury the rest." Jack's stomach twisted. His metal could have ended up here by chance. Or by design. Either way, this was now a battlefield. Rex stopped abruptly near a stack of battered cases. He circled once, then sat, issuing a low growl that reverberated through the silence. Jack moved forward, flashlight beam landing on a suitcase near the bottom. It was an older model, familiar. His breath caught. "That's mine," he said hoarsely. The same bag from his Denver trip, worn leather grip, a small tear on the side. Heart pounding, Jack dropped to his knees and unzipped it. The contents were jumbled, rifled through, shirts crumpled, documents out of place, but no metal box. His throat tightened. He checked every compartment, every seam. Nothing. He looked at Rex, who remained locked in point, eyes fixed on a second bag wedged nearby. Jack exchanged a glance with Mike. "He's still on it," Jack said. Mike nodded. "Let him work." Rex advanced, nose brushing the edges of the bag. He emitted a sharp bark, then resumed his focused stance. Jack's hands moved faster now, adrenaline burning through his veins. The search wasn't over. If anything, it had just cracked wide open. Jack's fingers worked with urgency. pulling zippers, flipping open compartments, peeling back folds of clothing that smelled of cold concrete and neglect. His own suitcase lay gutted before him, a casualty in a battle against unseen hands. The Silver Star remained missing, but Rex's continued alert had made one thing crystal clear. The scent trail hadn't gone cold. The dog stood braced beside a battered Samsonite wedged into the next stack, low growls vibrating through his chest. Jack glanced toward Mike, who had begun documenting the untagged inventory on his tablet. "He's locked on," Jack said quietly. Mike nodded, eyes narrowing. "Let's keep moving. Whoever runs this op has been sloppy but not stupid." Jack shifted closer to the case Rex indicated, knelt and dragged it free. The scuffed black exterior looked familiar in a way that gnawed at him. He turned it, examined the faded tag still attached to the handle. The ink had smudged, but the flight number and partial routing remained legible. His breath hitched. Flight 1738, Denver to JFK, his flight, the same one from 2 months prior. Jack sat back on his heels, pulse spiking. "Mike," he called, voice strained. "This bag came in on my last flight." Mike moved swiftly to his side. He read the tag, frowned deeply. "That shouldn't be here. Manifest says all cargo from 1738 was cleared and claimed." Jack's gut churned. Apparently not all of it. He opened the case, hands steady despite the rising tide of adrenaline. Devices inside were personal items belonging to a stranger. A woman by the looks of it. Clothing, travel accessories, a children's toy wedged beneath a knit sweater. No metal, but the implications rang louder than any alarm. His was not the only bag diverted here. Someone had been systematically pulling select luggage from legitimate channels, rerouting it to this off-the-book storage. But why? And how had his Silver Star vanished amid it all? Mike straightened, radioed for a deeper check on Flight 1738's missing inventory. Jack remained kneeling, thoughts spiraling. Then, from the far side of the room, a voice called out. A young maintenance worker in a worn jumpsuit had arrived with a clipboard, accompanied by one of Mike's security agents. The worker's name patch read, Sims. His eyes flickered nervously as they swept the disordered scene. "This section isn't supposed to be accessed without management approval," Sims began. "Waited for Nighter Dog to come out. There's someone else who's been real good at no good." The worker paled, glancing toward the door as though calculating the odds of escape. "I just started last month," Sims stammered. "They said sometimes stuff gets redirected for secondary screening. Nobody told me why." Jack rose slowly, gaze pinning the younger man. "Secondary screening? In a room no one knows exists? With half the cameras dead?" Sims licked his lips. I just do what I'm told. I'm not in charge." Rex's low growl deepened. The tension in the room thickened. Mike's tone hardened. "You're going to tell us everything you've seen?" Sims hesitated, eyes darting again. Then, shoulders slumping, he exhaled in defeat. "There's this guy, works off the books. Big guy, beard, always around late shifts. He pays a couple of us to pull certain bags from the belt before they're scanned. Says it's just for faster customs processing, but I knew that was crap." Jack's fists clenched. "Did you move any bags like that? From Flight 1738? Sims swallowed. Yeah, that night was crazy, lots of extra luggage. They told me to clear space, toss older stuff into this section. One bag had this little wooden box inside. Looked real fancy. I didn't think it belonged with the rest yet." Jack's heart slammed against his ribs. "A wooden box. Where is it?" Sims looked trapped. "I tossed it with the other stuff that went to the back. I didn't mean..." Jack barked. Sims pointed with a trembling hand toward a far corner of the room, where a loose stack of unsorted crates and untagged items stood piled beneath a heavy plastic tarp. Jack was moving before Mike could react, Rex bounding ahead, senses keyed to his partner's urgency. They reached the corner. Rex began sniffing along the tarp's edge, whined and scratched at a specific crate near the base. Jack ripped the covering back. Beneath layers of plastic wrap and scuffed cardboard lay a battered gray bin labeled miscalled. Heart hammering, he opened it. Atop the mess of random electronics and knotted cords sat a small, polished wooden box. Its corners dented but unmistakable, his breath caught. "That's it," he whispered. His fingers closed around the box. The familiar weight, the worn grain of the wood confirmed what his eyes refused to trust. He flipped the clasp and opened it. The Silver Star lay nestled within, tarnished but whole. A flood of emotions surged. Relief, fury, vindication. Sims hovered nearby, wringing his hands. "I swear I didn't know what it was," he said. Jack ignored him. His gaze remained locked on the metal, the symbol of sacrifices no thief could understand. Rex pressed close, leaning against Jack's leg. A grounding presence. Jack looked to Mike, voice hoarse. "We need to find that bearded bastard and whoever else is pulling these strings." Mike nodded grimly. "We will, but first, we're shutting this whole thing down." Jack's grip tightened on the box as he rose. The fight was far from over. Rex gave a short, sharp bark, head turning toward a faint noise deeper within the room. Jack's breath came shallow and fast as he stared into the wooden box. The silver star lay cradled in the faded velvet lining, but it was no longer the pristine symbol he remembered. The metal's once smooth surface now bore a deep gouge that scored across the five-pointed star, slicing through the engraved rays like a fresh wound. One arm of the star was bent at an unnatural angle, the silver edge marred by dents and flecks of rust-colored grime. His hand hovered above it for a long moment, unwilling to close the final inch of distance. Rex leaned closer, whining softly, sensing the shift in Jack's breathing, the taut stillness in his frame. Jack's fingers trembled as he finally lifted the metal, cradling it with reverence and dread. The cool metal bit into his calloused palm. His throat worked around a dry swallow, vision blurring despite years of conditioning. For an instant, he wasn't standing in a cold storage room beneath JFK. He was flat on his belly in the shale-strewn ravine of the Corrigal Valley, blood leaking from a shrapnel tear in his thigh, comms dead, air thick with the stench of cordite and burning flesh. The rifle lay a foot beyond his reach, and the Taliban fighters were closing in. Rex, then just 2 years into the unit, had braved open fire, muzzle low, teeth bared, dragging Jack by his vest strap back toward the tree line, refusing to leave his partner to die. The silver star had been pinned to his chest 6 months later by a general whose name Jack couldn't remember, in a hangar filled with forced smiles and camera flashes. But it had never been about the ceremony. It had been about Rex, about the bloodied dirt, about the men who hadn't come home, about survival when no odds favored them. Now the metal looked like it had survived its own war, desecrated by careless hands or worse. Jack's knees buckled before he knew they were moving. He sank to the floor beside the bin, the weight of memory slamming into him with all the subtlety of an IED. The storage room blurred around the edges, sounds muffling into a low hum. His breath came ragged, chest tight. Rex pressed against him, warmth grounding, heartbeat steady beneath grizzled fur. Jack's fingers curled protectively around the metal, as if shielding it from further harm. Mike knelt nearby, words cautious. "Jack," he said softly, one hand extended but not touching, "is not about the scratches. It's what it represents that matters. You still have it." Jack shook his head, soul clenched. "It mattered because it was whole," he ground out, "because it reminded me that something, anything, survived intact." His voice cracked on the last word, the admission slicing deeper than he intended. The gouged metal mirrored too perfectly the fractures inside him, the sleepless nights, the jagged flashbacks, the corrosive guilt that no metal could erase. He had fought so hard to believe in the symbol, because he couldn't trust himself to believe in the man beneath it. And now that symbol lay broken in his palm. Sims hovered nearby, pale and fidgeting, eyes wide with shame and fear. Jack barely registered him. The boy was a pawn in a larger game, one Jack wasn't ready to face yet. For now, all that existed was the bent star and the black tide rising in his mind. Rex's insistent nudge jolted him back from the brink. The shepherd's muzzle pressed into his ribs, sharp enough to hurt, deliberate enough to anchor. Jack drew a shuddering breath, then another. His grip loosened fractionally. He blinked hard, clearing the fog. Mike's voice cut through again, low and steady. "Jack, we'll get whoever did this, but I need you here now." Jack looked up, eyes rimmed red but focused. "I'm here," he rasped. His gaze dropped again to the metal. The gouge seemed to pulse in the dim light, a scar that could never be polished away. Jack forced his fingers to unclench, running a thumb along the ruined edge. "Kept it perfect all these years," he whispered. "Carried it through hell, and now..." The words trailed off. Mike didn't speak, only rested a hand lightly on Jack's shoulder. A soldier's touch waited with understanding. Rex settled against Jack's side, a living shield against the shadows. Slowly, deliberately, Jack closed the box, sealing the metal inside once more. The act felt both futile and necessary. He rose unsteadily, legs stiff. The pain in his chest remained, but the paralysis had receded. He met Mike's gaze, voice hoarse. "I want to know who put it here. I want to know how it got dragged into this mess." Mike nodded. "You will. We both will." Jack exhaled hard, squared his shoulders. "And after that," he added, "we burn this whole damn network to the ground." Rex barked once. Sharp. Mike's radio crackled then, a garbled voice breaking through the tension. "We've got movement on level 4, the voice reported. "Unauthorized personnel, looks like they're pulling more bags into the blind zone." Mike's eyes sharpened. "They know we're here?" Jack's pulse spiked anew. He gripped the wooden box tighter. "Then we don't have much time." Rex was already moving, body low, senses keyed to the hunt. Jack moved fast, adrenaline surging as Rex led the way through the dim corridors. Mike kept pace, weapon low but ready, voice sharp over the radio as he coordinated with the scattered security teams now converging on level 4. The unearthed network within the airport wasn't just a localized scam. It was systemic, deliberate, and the clock was ticking. Jack's mind raced with equal urgency, though the bent silver star weighed heavily in his pocket, a constant, jagged reminder of how fragile symbols could be. They cleared the last service door, emerging into the bustling main terminal once more, the sudden noise and light washing over them like a tide. Jack blinked hard, grounding himself. Rex pressed close to his leg, a living shield amidst the crowd. Mike pulled aside to coordinate further action with airport command, leaving Jack momentarily adrift in the human current. His hand closed reflexively around the box in his pocket, fingers tracing the warped edges beneath the polished wood. The damage gnawed at him, deeper than he'd admitted even to himself. Then, cutting through the din, a voice called out, a voice that stopped Jack cold. "Is that Rex?" Jack turned sharply. A broad-shouldered man in a faded leather jacket stood 10 feet away, eyes wide with recognition. His hair had thinned since Jack last saw him, but the grin and the stance were unmistakable. "Tom Landry," Jack breathed. The man crossed the distance in 2 strides, clapping Jack on the shoulder with a force that rattled his ribs. "I'll be damned," Tom said, eyes flicking down to the shepherd. "And look at this old warhorse, still chasing ghosts, are you, boy?" Rex's tail thumped once in acknowledgement. Jack found his voice rough with disbelief. "What the hell are you doing here, Tom?" Tom grinned. "Flight delay. I'm headed to DC for the Veterans Honor Summit. Took the early shuttle from Boston. And you?" Jack hesitated, the events of the past hours weighing heavy. He nodded once. "Same summit, but I got a little sidetracked." He quickly sketched the bare bones of what had happened. The diverted luggage, the hidden network, the mangled metal now burning a hole in his pocket. Tom's expression darkened. "Jesus, Jack, that's a hell of a mess." He glanced around, then leaned in. "You know who's here today? Rick Donnelly. Works with the Department of Veterans Affairs now, Artifact Restoration Division. He's part of the summit team. I just saw him grabbing coffee near Gate 17. Jack's pulse quickened. "Restoration?" "Yeah," Tom nodded. "They've got a program now, repairing damaged metals, restoring historical pieces for families. If anyone can tell you what's possible, it's Rick." Without another word, Jack turned toward Gate 17, Rex close at his side. Tom matched stride effortlessly, the easy camaraderie of old battle brothers reawakening despite years apart. They reached the gate in minutes. Amid the milling travelers, a tall, silver-haired man in a tailored suit stood sipping from a paper cup, a small VA lapel pin gleaming against his jacket. Tom stepped forward. "Rick, got someone you need to meet." Rick looked up, eyes sharpening as they landed on Jack. "Jack Turner," he said slowly. He heard the name plenty over the years. Jack extended a hand, grip firm. "I need your help," he said without preamble. Tom filled in the gaps as Jack withdrew the wooden box from his pocket and opened it with a grim expression. Rick inhaled sharply as he took in the bent and gouged silver star. "Damn," he murmured, lifting the metal with delicate fingers. "She's been through hell, hasn't she?" Jack's jaw worked. "Can it be repaired?" Rick studied the piece for a long moment, turning it beneath the terminal lights. Structurally, yes, he said finally. We can reforge the bent arm, polish out the surface damage as much as possible. The deep gouge, well, that may leave a trace, but we can restore the integrity of the piece. Jack's breath eased fractionally. How long? Rick's expression sobered. Full restoration takes time. Our best metallurgist is based in DC. It'd need to be disassembled, cleaned, repaired, and reassembled to original spec. We're talking 6 to 8 weeks minimum. Jack's heart sank. I need it for the ceremony tomorrow, he said quietly. Rick shook his head with genuine regret. I'm sorry, Jack. Rushing it would risk permanent damage. If you trust us to do it right, you'll have it back whole. But not by morning. The words landed with the force of a gut punch. Jack swallowed hard, gaze dropping to the battered star in Rick's hands. I spent years keeping it perfect, he said softly. Now? Tom laid a steady hand on Jack's shoulder. You kept the real part perfect, Jack. The medal's a symbol. What it stands for is in you and in that damn dog at your side. Jack exhaled slowly, the weight of disappointment settling like stone. He looked to Rick. Then do it right, he said firmly. Make it whole again. I'll wait as long as it takes. Rick nodded. Consider it done. And Jack, his gaze sharpened. You're owed more than just a restored medal. I want to hear everything you've uncovered here. The VA can help push this investigation higher than airport security can reach. Jack met his gaze squarely. Then we'll talk. But first, there's more to clean up here. Rex gave a low growl then, head turning sharply toward a cluster of figures moving across the concourse. Jack's gaze remained locked on the cluster of figures moving across the concourse. Instincts sharp despite the emotional weight of the last hour. Mike rejoined them, face drawn but determined. Security's closing in on the Level 4 crew, he reported. Looks like we stirred up a hornet's nest. Jack nodded, pulse steady. The battered Silver Star rested once more in Rick's careful possession, entrusted to the VA for patient restoration. That fight would take time. The fight ahead would not. Rex pressed close to Jack's leg, body taut. The dog had been alert and driven all day, pushing through hours of stress and shifting environments. Jack absently stroked behind his ears, a silent thank you for unflagging loyalty. The gesture was interrupted as Rex suddenly stiffened beneath his hand, muscles locking, a sharp tremor running through his frame. Rex? Jack breathed, dropping to one knee. The shepherd's body began to seize, legs twitching in short bursts, jaws clenched. Jack's heart seized with him. Easy, buddy. I've got you, he whispered, voice low and steady. Tom knelt beside him, worry clear in his eyes. Seizure? Jack nodded grimly. He's had minor episodes before, nothing like this. The tremors subsided after long seconds that stretched like eternity. Rex sagged against Jack, panting hard, eyes dull with exhaustion. Jack cradled the grizzled head gently, guilt rising sharp and swift. He had driven them both too hard, pushed Rex to perform as he had in younger, stronger years, ignoring the toll that stress and time exacted on even the bravest of warriors. His voice caught in his throat. You should have known. Damn it, Rex, I should have known. Mike crouched beside them, voice steady. We can get him checked at the airport clinic. They've got a vet on call. Jack shook his head. I'll take him myself. He doesn't need strange hands right now. He needs rest. Hell, we both do. Tom rested a hand on Jack's shoulder. You sure? You've still got that ceremony tomorrow. The Silver Star would not be there, not in its rightful form. And now Rex, the truest measure of courage Jack had ever known, was paying the price for his blind drive to reclaim a piece of metal. The realization burned deeper than any gouge on the metal's surface. Jack met Tom's gaze, voice rough. I went into this thinking I needed that damn metal to stand proud tomorrow. I was wrong. I need this dog beside me. That's what matters. He rose carefully, lifting Rex's weight against his side. The shepherd leaned into him, trusting utterly, breath still ragged by body relaxing by degrees. Jack looked to Rick. Cancel the rush on the restoration. Take your time, do it right. If tomorrow comes without the medal, so be it. Rick's eyes softened with respect. Understood, Jack. It'll be ready when it's ready. And the story behind it, that's what people will remember. Jack nodded once, the decision settling with surprising clarity. For so long, the Silver Star had been a crutch, a shield against the guilt and grief he carried. But here, now, with Rex's weight pressing warm and real against him, Jack understood the truth. Valor wasn't forged in metal. It lived in bonds that could not be tarnished or bent. Mike clapped his shoulder. I'll coordinate with airport security. We've got enough evidence to break this ring wide open. You go take care of your partner. Tom added, voice warm, and I'll see you tomorrow at the summit. With or without a medal, you're the man they need to hear from. Jack managed a faint smile. Thanks, boys. But first things first. Supporting Rex, he moved through the terminal with deliberate steps, each one a silent vow. Tomorrow he would stand before his brothers and sisters in arms, not as a man defined by a medal, but as one who knew where true courage lived. And, as he guided Rex toward the exit, the shepherd's tired eyes found his once more, filled with a loyalty no honor could surpass. The morning of the summit dawned crisp and clear, the sun rising over Washington, D.C., in soft gold. Jack stood before the hotel mirror, tying the familiar knot of his old service tie with steady fingers. Beside him, Rex lay curled on a blanket near the door, breathing slow but even after a long night of rest and quiet care. The previous day's decision sat firm in Jack's chest. There would be no rush to restore the medal, no frantic attempt to reclaim a piece of metal that now seemed secondary to what truly mattered. Today he would stand as he was, unadorned but unbroken. He glanced at Rex, the weight of gratitude pressing warm against his ribs. You ready for this, partner? The shepherd stirred, lifting his head. Though fatigue still shadowed his gaze, a familiar spark lit within. Slowly, with visible effort, Rex rose to his feet. Jack's throat tightened. Good boy, he whispered. The walk to the convention hall was slow, measured, each step deliberate to spare Rex's strength. Fellow veterans and active service members milled about the grand lobby, uniforms gleaming, laughter and handshakes filling the space with a pulse of camaraderie. Jack moved among them quietly, nodding to familiar faces. Tom appeared at his side, grin wide. Thought you might not make it, he said softly. Jack managed a small smile. Had to, for him. He gestured toward Rex, who stood tall despite the slight tremor in his legs. The opening ceremony commenced in the grand ballroom, flags flanking the stage, a hush settling over the assembled crowd as the first speaker took the podium. Jack sat near the front, Rex lying at his feet, head resting on his paws, eyes tracking every move. When his name was called to speak, Jack rose slowly, heart thudding with a different rhythm than battle or pursuit. This was no fight, no chase through shadows. This was truth. Tom helped steady Rex as Jack moved to the stage. The shepherd rose alongside him, tail low but determined, pacing each step beside his master. Murmurs rippled through the audience at the sight of the aging canine soldier by Jack's side. Jack reached the podium, hands resting lightly on its edges. He scanned the sea of faces, brothers and sisters forged in fire, bound by sacrifice. His voice, when it came, was rough but steady. I had intended to stand here today wearing the silver star awarded to me after a battle that claimed more than it spared. That medal was lost in a place it should never have been, caught in a web of greed that has no place among us. It was found but damaged beyond recognition. He paused, breath catching. Rex sat beside him now, head high, gaze unwavering. Jack continued, I won't wear it today, not because it isn't here, but because what it stands for can't be tarnished by scratches or bends. It lives here. He touched his chest, and here, his hand dropped to rest gently atop Rex's head. This dog, this brother in fur, pulled me from more hells than I can name. Yesterday he reminded me that no medal defines us. Our actions do. Our bonds, the ones who stand with us when the rest of the world falls away. That is valor. The room held its breath, the weight of his words settling deep. Then, movement rippled through the front rows. A single veteran, grizzled, chest adorned with rows of ribbons, rose silently. He unpinned his own silver star and stepped forward, placing it on the podium with a firm nod. Another followed, then another. One by one, men and women who had bled and fought across decades came forward, each removing their medal, not as a replacement, but as a testament. A pile of gleaming stars soon rested before Jack, the room thick with a reverence beyond words. Jack's throat closed around a tide of emotion. I thank you, he managed, But understand, this is not mine to keep. These stars belong to you, to the stories they carry. Today I stand here with the greatest honor already beside me." He gestured to Rex, who remained at his side, body trembling slightly now with fatigue yet posture proud. The shepherd's gaze locked on Jack's face, ears pricked, as though absorbing every word, every heartbeat. The applause that rose then was not loud but deep, a rolling wave of respect that filled the space with unspoken understanding. Jack knelt beside Rex, voice breaking. "You did good, boy, you did real good." The shepherd's eyes gleamed, the spark of shared history and unyielding loyalty burning bright. As Jack rose again, the weight of loss, the wounds of memory, seemed just a fraction lighter. The applause faded into warm conversation and quiet handshakes as the attendees filtered out of the ballroom, leaving behind a space still heavy with the echoes of the morning's moments. Jack remained seated near the stage, one hand resting gently on Rex's head. The old shepherd leaned against his leg, eyes half closed, body weary but calm, a gleaming testament to bonds forged in fire and carried in hearts. Tom approached first, voice low with reverence. "You did good up there, Jack. Damn good." Jack offered a faint smile. "Didn't do it alone," he said, fingers brushing the fur beneath his palm. Rick followed soon after, a sleek black case in hand. "Jack," he began carefully, "I spoke with the director after the ceremony. Given what you uncovered and what you've endured, the Department of Veterans Affairs wants to honor that. We expedited the restoration process last night. Our team completed it this morning." He opened the case, revealing a fully restored silver star gleaming against fresh velvet. Edges straightened, surface flawless, the gouge erased by the skilled hands of a master artisan. The sight of it struck Jack harder than he expected, not for the metal itself, but for what it represented now. A thing returned to perfection, though the journey it had traveled was anything but. Rick extended the case. "It's yours, Jack, to keep if you choose." Jack looked down at Rex, who gazed back with a tired but steady gaze. The events of the last days flooded through him. Not the loss of the medal, not the chase through hidden rooms and false leads, but the quiet, enduring presence of the dog who had followed him into every darkness, never once faltering. Slowly, Jack closed the case and pushed it back toward Rick. "Thank you," he said softly, "but I won't take it for myself." Rick's brows lifted in surprise. "Jack, it's your right." Jack shook his head. "It was never about the medal. It was about what and who stood beside me when it was earned. And there's someone else who deserves to carry that honor more than I do." He rose carefully, legs stiff, shoulders squared with newfound clarity. "If you'd allow it, I have something to do." Rick nodded, understanding flickering in his eyes. "Of course." Later that afternoon, with the crowds dispersed and the ballroom emptied, Jack found a quiet corner near the hotel garden, a place where dappled sunlight filtered through soft green leaves. He sat on a low stone bench, Rex stretched beside him on a thick blanket, chest rising and falling with slow, even breaths. The shepherd's gaze followed Jack as he opened the black case once more, the silver star gleaming within. Jack swallowed against the tightness in his throat. "You know," he began softly, voice barely more than a whisper, "when they gave me this thing, all I could think about was who didn't come home. I never felt like I deserved it, not really. But you pulled me out of that valley when nobody else could. You watched my 6 every damn day since. You've carried more weight than any man should ask of another, and you've never asked for a damn thing in return." He lifted the medal carefully, the metal cool against his palm. Rex's ears flicked, eyes tracking the movement with slow curiosity. Jack smiled, weary and full. "So I figure, if anyone deserves to wear this, it's you." With practiced fingers, he unclipped the simple service collar Rex wore, threading the medal's ribbon gently through it, securing it with reverence. He replaced the collar around Rex's neck, adjusting it until the silver star lay flat against grizzled fur. The shepherd blinked, tilted his head as if to ask the question Jack already knew the answer to. "Yeah, it's yours now," Jack said, voice rough with emotion. "Always was, if I'm being honest." He leaned down, forehead pressed gently to Rex's. "You're the best damn partner I've ever had, old boy. I don't care who knows it." For a long moment they sat there in silence, the air between them thick with unspoken understanding. The world beyond the garden moved on, cars passing, voices drifting, But within that small space, only one bond mattered. Eventually, footsteps approached. Tom stood a few paces off, watching quietly. He gave Jack a knowing nod, eyes shining. "Hell of a way to close a chapter," he said softly. Jack glanced down at Rex, then back at Tom. "Closing anything," he replied, "just giving credit where it's due." The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the grass. Jack rose slowly, joints protesting but heart lighter than it had been in years. Rex stood with him, head high despite the tremble in his legs, the silver star resting proudly against his chest. Together they turned toward the path ahead, not as a soldier seeking redemption, nor as a dog following orders, but as two old warriors who had faced the worst the world could offer, and walked out the other side together, side by side, where they belonged. If this story resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'd also love to hear your thoughts. What part of Jack and Rex's journey stayed with you the most? And where are you watching from today? Share it in the comments. Your voice helps keep stories like this alive.